I'm pleased to say that I have got a very good friend joining me in the studio because he is in town and we don't get to enjoy him as often as I wish we could. It is the fantastic Nile Gardiner. No, I mean, the audience knows you anyway, but Heritage Foundation, genius, Brit who now lives in America. You're a bit like a brain in a vat over in Washington, D.C. You're like the right-wing version of a sort of Greta Thunberg. In America, they're like, here he comes with all of his knowledge and his foresight. But it's really interesting speaking to you because you're a Brit, you know this country, you love this country, but you live in America and you work very closely with the Republican Party, big part of the policy making for the Trump administration 2.0. And so actually having you here to talk us through the lot of it is just, you know, it's fantastic. Let's start off with, well, we'll play our little clip first because this is the Sun's political editor, Jack Elsham, asking Trump and Starmer about migration.
Legal migration is at record levels in Britain. The Prime Minister is trying to tackle that. What advice would you give to the man standing next to you on trying to stop illegal migration in Britain? I
told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it's going to destroys countries from within. And we're actually now removing a lot of the people that came into our country. It's a very hard chore. We were given a very, very bad hand. Millions of people came in from prisons and mental institutions. We have to remove them.
Jack, let me just deal with the question of returns, because this is obviously an issue we're taking incredibly seriously. We struck the returns arrangement with France, and notwithstanding the challenges to that scheme, which you've seen in the last few days, a flight went off at 6:15 this morning, successfully returning someone under that scheme. It can be done. It was done early this morning, so I can confirm that that flight went. It went successfully, and I'm pleased about that. Now we need to ramp that up at scale, which was always envisaged under the scheme, but it's very important that we have been able to prove that the proof of concept.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Donald Trump has often done this to other world leaders, called them out on things before. But this is him calling out Donald Trump on how this is Donald Trump calling out Sir Keir Starmer on how Sir Keir Starmer is managing his own domestic affairs, not calling him out on a matter of geopolitics, not calling him out on something that's happening externally, but basically saying, I love Britain. Are you sure you do? Because you are not doing a good job as Prime Minister. And what I want to ask you, actually, is when are the gloves going to come off properly? Because my understanding is the Trump administration do not like that man.
Well, firstly, Alex, it's great to be here. Wonderful to see you've got a fantastic show.
Oh,
and I'm sure a lot of people in America love your show as well. Alex, I mean, it's been an extraordinary week, and I've been on the ground at Windsor throughout this week, and I do think President Trump is extremely happy with how everything went. It's been a very successful visit. And as you pointed out, Alex, President Trump called out Keir Starmer this week on the whole mass migration crisis, how to deal with all the boats coming over to the UK. In fact, Donald Trump would sort out the migration crisis in the UK in about a day. He's already secured the US border. 11 million illegals flooded over the border under Joe Biden, and Trump has completely secured the border today. That's a massive achievement. He could easily do that in the UK if he was leading the UK. Unfortunately, we've got far-left Keir Starmer as Prime Minister here. And it has to be said, Keir Starmer is not exactly a very popular figure in Washington at the moment.
Right. This is what I want to drill down on, because, you know, having you and I sort of, you know, you do lots of American media all the time. Every now and then when there are things happening in Britain, the Americans want me to talk to their media, so I do a fair amount. And it's for people listening, our British audience listening, I just want to reassure you guys, actually, that America is talking about us. They know what's going on. They're deeply worried by what's going on. It's not just Elon Musk. It is a huge amount of American politicians on the right. It is American news channels on the right. It is the American public on the right. We're not alone. They're not going to let us sink. They're not going to allow a global socialist government turn us into a dystopian hellhole. And that is what Trump is alluding to, standing on the podium, saying publicly, you've got to sort this out.
Yes.
It is tearing your country apart. So I want to ask you again, look, we know the American administration, they might think Sir Keir Starmer's an affable enough chap when they meet him, but they don't care for his politics at all. And so, you know, they've only been in government 1 year. When are the gloves going to come off? We don't know what happened behind the scenes at Chequers. Neither of us would have been privileged to overhear that. But we as the British public who are thinking, please, can you actually intervene at this point? Because this man is uncontrollable. He's not listening. It's not in his DNA to do any of the things that Donald Trump's done. It's not going to happen. So are the gloves ever going to come off? Do you think there's ever, can you envisage, I mean, J.D. Vance is used more as the attack dog, isn't he? Could you ever envisage an America who turns around to Britain and actually says, if you don't do these things, or indeed Europe, if you don't do these things, you're going to drag down Western civilization, and frankly, you're going to drag down us with you?
Yeah, I do think that that is the way things are moving, because there is a deep concern within the White House, within the Trump presidency, with regard to what's happening in the UK and the whole of Europe. And the fear is that Western civilization, the roots of Western civilization, are under attack, frankly. And so what's happening here in the UK and across Europe is being closely followed. J.D. Vance has addressed it on a number of occasions, but also numerous US officials, and President Trump's weighed in a number of times also. I do think that in the coming months, Keir Starmer's socialist government is going to be increasingly challenged actually by the United States on multiple fronts.
Right.
So the key issues are going to be freedom of speech, the mass migration crisis, what's happening in Europe in terms of the assault on Western culture and Christianity. These are big issues. Also, what Keir Starmer is doing, calling for the creation and recognition of a Palestinian state, is absolutely insane. This is a gift to Hamas. This is strongly being opposed in Washington. Also, the whole net zero crazy climate agenda that Keir Starmer is advancing is absolutely anathema to the United States. And so on multiple fronts, you're going to see significant pressure being applied by Washington on the UK. And yes, the Americans care very deeply about what's happening here in Britain. They're closely following it. And just earlier this week, in fact, there was this case highlighted by the Free Speech Union of an American citizen living in the UK who was interrogated by the police over some comment she made on social media.
Which they didn't even tell her what it was.
They didn't tell her what it was. She's a cancer patient, and this was truly Orwellian stuff. And that already is being highlighted across social media in the United States. I've urged the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, to intervene over this, because this is an absolute insult, frankly, to the American people. For an American citizen to be interrogated over her tweets, actually, on British soils, absolutely unacceptable. I do think you are going to see the US intervening on the freedom of speech issue in the UK, because it directly affects also the United States and US citizens living here in the UK. But also, frankly, the British government would like to restrict what US social media companies can say, actually.
So it's interesting. So people think Donald Trump is a blunt tool. I think he's actually far more sophisticated and intelligent than he lets on or presents himself. But I see what's going on now as extremely subtle and genius statecraft from America. In the same way, I think they're treating us the same way as they're treating Russia, and I'll tell you why. So the way that America thinks it's going to actually be able to conquer Putin is by undermining the economic model, by doing drill, baby, drill, and therefore bringing down the price of gas and oil, which will suddenly prevent the Kremlin from being able to successfully fund their war machine. They're asking us to do the same thing. So we're then not buying fossil fuels from other countries who are buying it from Russia and then refining it. And I think that a couple of things are happening here. The setting up of US-UK nuclear projects is meant to undermine that. Also, with drill, baby, drill, I think America is going to offer to export liquefied natural gas to us when it comes to Christmas time. The lights might go out. We currently get that stuff largely from countries like Qatar. And I think that will come with conditions. Now, in the same way as well, they're actually fighting off Russia in Ukraine by saying, we want rare earth minerals in Ukraine. We're going to build mines in order to access them, but then that becomes American property. That becomes something that then is our interest, and we will defend it. So if Russia thinks they can come into Ukraine, we're going to have American boots on the ground, be it private security or whatever, because those are going to be American-owned resources. I think building big tech centres in the UK is going to be doing much the same, because then if there's an issue with freedom of speech and something someone said on social media, well, guess where Microsoft will now have a headquarters? That's right, in the north of England. I actually see a lot of this as quite cleverly designed, subtle statecraft from America. I don't know whether you sort of think I'm barking up the wrong tree here.
Well, certainly, I think Keir Starmer's behaving like Vladimir Putin over free speech in the UK, and that's for sure. And I do think that if you look at the US-UK trade agreement, the trade deal, which is a benefit of Brexit, I think that the US may attach provisions relating to free speech in the further negotiations, for this bill, and so I think that you're going to see sustained US pressure on the UK on multiple fronts, and it's because the United States really cares about the future of Britain. US conservatives care deeply about the future of Europe and the future of Western civilization, and they want to help save Britain, actually, and this is the reality. You mentioned President Trump earlier. I've met the president several times. He's highly intelligent. He's somebody who has a deep interest, actually, in developments in the UK and Europe. He cares deeply about what happens here in Britain. He's the most pro-British president of the modern era, and he absolutely adores the British monarchy, the royal family, and also the British people as well. I mean, this week actually was really, and he said this, one of the highlights of his life, actually, and a tremendous honour, the second state visit. So this is a president who genuinely cares about the future of the British people, because Keir Starmer, you can be sure, does not. The Labour government does not care about the future of the British people, actually.
Right.
But the American presidency actually does.
But Donald Trump functions as a businessman. He gets deals, and he uses deals as diplomacy. He uses this sort of these entrenchments and these intermingling of economies and interests as a way. It's almost, back in the day, a medieval king would get his daughter to marry the son of, a foreign king or something. What Trump seems to do is come up with business deals as a way of uniting two countries, but also as a way of having levers of power over them. Talking about the sort of things that may come as provisions of future trade deals and conditions that may be put upon the United Kingdom, I want to talk about something we've not really spoken about on this programme at all today, which is Trump prescribing Antifa, the anti-fascist movement, as dangerous terrorists, which needs to be done. It needs to be done. I know there are people going, right, you're saying to people, stop saying Nazis and far left and far right and fascist, don't you? But you will say far left. And I'm like, no, because the thing is, there might be a scattering of Nazis and skinheads and ne'er-do-well somewhere, but the far left really does exist. The far left really is mobilised. The far left also seem to have a huge amount of influence over mainstream politics. Do you think that something America might say to Britain down the line is, we've prescribed Antifa, you've got to do the same thing?
Yeah, I think that what President Trump is doing here is absolutely superb. He's taking action against terrorists, basically, and these Antifa terrorists and other far left movements. I mean, they're actually like Nazis themselves, really.
Well, let's not forget Nazis were, of course, the National Socialists.
Yeah, exactly.
They were far left.
They are National Socialists, basically, and President Trump is taking action against terrorists, and these are very dangerous individuals. And we saw what happened with regard to Charlie Kirk, a great man. And this is what we're up against right now. I'm very dangerous, frankly, fascistic terrorists, actually, National Socialists, really, who seek the destruction of the United States and Western civilization, but also the United Kingdom as well. And so what's happening in the United States should be a role model for what should happen in the UK, perhaps under the next government, because Keir Starmer is absolutely useless, really. I mean, Keir Starmer does nothing whatsoever to stand up to the far left, actually. In fact, he's often bowing down to the far left, actually. But President Trump is somebody who stands up for the American people, will not tolerate these terrorist movements operating, and you're going to see swift action against them.
Do you think that somewhere America, I mean, look, we know that the Donald has a good relationship with Nigel Farage. They must have looked at the sort of mood music in the UK and seen that the writing's on the wall and the writing says reform. I mean, certainly that is what various pollsters are now saying quite openly, and various psephologists. Do you think America might be thinking, actually, the Trump administration, he's got one more term, and you can never bind your successor? As much as you might want to, as much as the Republicans might think, yes, I think we'll win again because the Democrats are in a mess. I mean, they are in a mess. Yeah. But you cannot guarantee that. And actually, the way to sort of put rocket fuel into the special relationship would be to have someone who is a natural ally of Donald Trump in number 10. And do you know if there are conversations in Republican circles saying, well, look, even if Farage does come in 2029, Donald Trump will have already left the White House, and we don't know who Farage would then be working with in America. Let's hope that that situation is brought forward, because Nigel Farage at the Reform Conference said on stage he thinks an election is going to happen by 2027. He said that publicly. Now, the man doesn't say things publicly that often that he thinks is going to make him look like a fool. And as someone who knows him pretty well, very well, in fact, he's a brilliant reader of the political tea leaves and seems to sort of know how to read the runes like nobody else. Yes. And I've been wondering for some time, why did he say that?
Yeah, well, I do hope we're going to see an early general election in the UK, and this, this socialist government right now is an absolute disaster, I hope the British people will be liberated as soon as possible from this ghastly far-left government. So I absolutely hope that Nigel Farage is right. And recently, actually, I met Nigel Farage when he came over to visit, and also he testified before Congress, and I was sitting there actually during the hearing when he took on these Democrat members of Congress. Some of them exceedingly nasty, I have to say, and Nigel Farage did extremely well. He's somebody who's hugely popular, I would say, among US conservatives. Many view him as the Prime Minister in waiting, and he's an extremely talented and skillful politician, but also he's somebody who has deep affinity for the US-UK special relationship, loves America, and I think that the future of the special relationship would be very safe in his hands.
You almost feel as if there was sort of a Trump-Farage combination. It would be a bit like the Reagan-Thatcher years, where two people who are natural bedfellows could do so much together so quickly because they speak the same language, perhaps. Yes,
so I really hope that we'll see an early UK general election, and there's a very good chance that the next president could be Vice President J.D. Vance, and who is somebody who loves the UK, and believes firmly in the importance of the US-UK special relationship. He recently holidayed in the Cotswolds, the most beautiful part of Britain, in my view.
He went to the Oxfordshire bit, though, Niall. The Gloucestershire one's the real one. The Oxfordshire bit's full of Londoners.
That is a great point, having grown up in Gloucestershire myself. So, I do think the future of the special relationship will be in great shape. And I am confident about the future.
I want to ask you about something that's happened both sides of the pond. It is, of course, on Sunday, the funeral of Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
I wonder if UK broadcasters are going to be live streaming it like they did the blimmin' funeral of George Floyd, where everything had to stop because they were playing that out. Something tells me they might show a couple of clips and that's it. But I think it's something that, do you know, that tragic, disgusting assassination. So many people on the left turned around and said, oh, he's an extremist. Oh, he was terrible. Well, he had controversial views. He was incendiary. The BBC just casually saying that. And you just think, have you ever seen what he said? Because what he was saying was just Christianity.
Yes,
at the end of the day, a Christian has been killed for having Christian views and wanting to debate them, but being warm and open and generous of spirit and kind and compassionate. A Christian's been assassinated in Christendom for being a Christian. If this was a young imam, right, standing there in jeans and a T-shirt with a microphone going, we as Muslims don't believe that a man can marry a woman, or we believe in the sanctity of the unborn child, and then got shot, blimmin' heck, there'd be knee-taking, armbands, protests, live streaming all the time. The BBC would never suggest that a young imam who doesn't believe that a man and a man can get married is an extremist. And on the other side, let's actually look at something that was asked of Donald Trump about a broadcaster in America, because you've had the same problem in America with the reaction to Charlie Kirk's death. The woke mind virus has infected all of the West. And this is about Jimmy Kimmel, who frankly was just talking utter rot, which lost him his job. Let's have a look at Trump's reaction.
Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Well, also, the fact of the matter is Kimmel just stated a falsehood. He said that the perpetrator of that disgusting killing was actually part of the MAGA movement. He was not.
Yeah, it was a complete lie.
And this isn't about, you know, the big debate in America after the comments of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, about limits to free speech, is now sort of, because Americans treasure free speech. But there's a big difference between actually what is just absolutely false, and there's also one has to assume when someone disgraces their company. If I were to suddenly, I don't know, go goo goo gaga and take off all my clothes, I doubt I'll be invited back to present a show again, because I would have brought my company into disrepute. I mean, it's fair that Kimmel's gone, right?
Yes, I mean, I agree. I mean, this is it's a private company that has made a corporate decision after one of their key broadcasters made a flat-out lie, frankly, it was sheer disinformation, and what he was suggesting is completely and utterly false, and quite incendiary as well in many respects. And so ABC News took a decision as a private entity to remove him, and that's their right to do so. It's not a free speech issue. I think it's an issue of management of that organisation deciding that this particular individual, Jimmy Kimmel, had made comments that were hugely false and embarrassing for their corporation. So I think that's the reality. It's not a freedom of speech.